Bwana Speaker, Kenyans have evolved from all protocols observed to borrowing protocol. Do you allow me to borrow the protocols that have advanced? So with that, I can leave it at that. I think as you've heard, my name is Muratha. I lead a couple of our programs on devolution, including the Kenya Accountable Devolution Program that has supported this program. I also co-chair the Devolution Donor Working Group together with my colleague Joseph Kimani on that corner from the Embassy of Denmark. So as I speak, I'll be speaking in both those capacities. Also, I'm speaking on behalf of our country director, and sitting on this side, I'm normally on that side as he's speaking, and I'm normally reminded of, was it Dr. Uma Muga, when the late President Arap Moi was speaking, and he was saying, I said that, I'm the one who wrote that. So as I speak today, let me also recognize the team in the World Bank that actually supported this work. And I can see some of them. Naomi, I know Moses Kajubi is not here. I see Carol on that side, Mariam, I think I saw Sarah. So those are the people that have been working. I know we also have Diana and Tina somewhere who have been working very closely with CRA, with National Treasury, with counties on these issues of revenue, and I really want to recognize them. In terms of the Kenya Accountable Devolution Program, we are also financed by the Embassy of Denmark, the United Kingdom, FCDO, that's represented here by Con. If I do not represent them, the check, if I don't mention them, the check will not come. So we recognize you, we are ever loyal. So maybe then coming to my remarks, and I'll try and keep them short because we have quite a lot to go through. The World Bank has been quite a big supporter of devolution, and we're very encouraged by what we see. I think in our current portfolio, we have about a total of $2 billion that's direct support to counties, and about $3 or so billion that's in projects that are very active at the county level. And I think in this year's budget alone, if I was to say in shillings, I think we have somewhere between 15 to 18 billion shillings that's conditional grants to counties, and I'll come back to that point a bit later on. And in these partnerships, we've been working very closely also with national level institutions like CRA, and I must say that I'm very proud of the work that CRA is doing. When I look at the institutions that were birthed by the new constitution, the way you've been able to establish yourself as a technical institution, I think over and above the report that we are launching here today, I think you will see in your package there's a lot of other documents that have been produced by CRA, whether that's the county profiles, whether that's the work on inter and intra-county inequalities. CRA has really established itself as a technical institution. I'm also very proud to see bodies like SRC that have similarly done very good work at the technical level. The controller of budget, I was just downloading your recent report on the budget implementation. That's one of my favorite reports. And Bwana PS, as we think about the devolution sector working group, as we think about this moment we are in transition, we have such rich data, as you've just heard. You had people quoting the gross county product report that's done by the Bureau of Statistics and that we've supported. I think we need to come together as a devolution sector working group to see how we can better use this data to inform. And that's why I really like that last slide of what can we do about what we've had. And also when you have bodies like the Senate that are charged with oversight of counties, supporting devolution, this kind of data is very useful. And I'm also encouraged, sometimes, when we talk about coordination, there can be a temptation for each institution to want to try and do this on their own. So I'm very encouraged by the collaborative approach that you have taken in doing this report and in the people that you have been able to bring together. And I can assure you that we also, on the development partner side, will also work in that spirit of collaboration. I know we have UNDP here that's working with many of your counties. We have ACT here that's also working with many counties on this agenda, and we want to work with you hand in hand to implement some of this. I think this is a critical conversation on own source revenue, but I think, as you said it, Commissioner Irene, it's about how we finance devolution. And I think in my remarks, that's one of the things I would really want us to think about now as we are getting into the next 5 years of devolution, having gone through 2 terms. How can we better finance devolution? And of course, one route is own source revenue. You know, we have the equitable share, and there's been an ongoing conversation, including in the just concluded electoral period and before that. From our end, as development partners, of course, and government itself, you also have conditional grants. And one thing that struck me, you know, in the slide that you presented on what the county potential is of 216 billion and what the actual collections are, which have averaged at about 31 billion. It was interesting that 31 billion is almost similar actually to the average, apart from this year, which is a transition year. If you look at the past 2-3 years, the total donor-funded conditional grants to counties have been more or less at that level. And I think as a country, we have prided ourselves, let me speak as a Kenyan, in being able to wean ourselves off of donor support. And in the same way that at the national level, the donor component is small, it would be good that we are at that 216 and the donor support is at 30 or even less. So that's one area I think that we can look at. I think for us, private sector, that's another area that we need to look at, and PPPs, as we try to see how can we better finance, improve the quality and the quantity of services that we are offering our citizenry. And again, that's another area that we can see how we can work with you. I know one conversation that CRA and ourselves were part of is how do we finance our big cities? You know, we have Nairobi, we have Mombasa, we have Nakuru, we have Kisumu, and who knows what other cities are going to come up. And the kind of resources that are required to deliver urban services. Again, that's a conversation that we need to have. And I think when I see the people around the room, I'm confident that the solutions are there. One thing I can say that I've been happy about this is that many of the programs that I mentioned that we are working with counties are incentive-based, using something we call a program for results. I know in the Kenya Devolution Support Program that was managed by the Ministry of Devolution, one of the performance measures was on counties that are able to increase their revenue. I think at that time we talked about year on year by 10%, and we did see some of that increment, but maybe this is something that we need to discuss with you a lot more as we design the next phase, and I think my colleague Christine is leading on some of that work. Can we think more? Because I think for us, this issue of revenue, and if you talk to many of us, that issue of domestic resource mobilization is a big agenda. How can we have this as a bigger component so that we also reward counties that are able to show an improvement based on their potential? Because it's true that different counties may not all have the same base, but wherever you are, you can be able to improve. And I think this is a conversation that we can have as we design. I think finally, you know, even as we talk about revenue, as a devolution community, we also have to talk about services. Because ultimately, as citizens, we are happier to pay revenues when we see those services. And I can say with devolution, you know, we recently did a study called Making Devolution Work for Service Delivery that was looking at devolution over the past 10 years. We see a lot of improvements in health, whether that's through the number of health facilities, staff, and even actual outcomes, especially in some of the counties that were marginalized. But we also see that areas like agriculture, the financing for agriculture has more or less flatlined. If you look at water, that has also flatlined. So if we can see a commensurate increase as revenues go up to some of these services and actual improvements in services, I think it makes it a lot easier for the revenue people in Wajir County to be able to make that case when they are collecting. And I always say, I love, for those of you who know me, I love my good nyama choma. And when I go to the market in Kiseri and I say, when I know how much money is collected in this market, the access to that market should be cleaner, it should be, so that the traders who are there feel much more happier paying for that. And I think it's also what you said with health facilities, is that counties like Nakuru that are ring fencing their facility improvement fund, we are also seeing direct impacts in that area. And of course, accountability, because the more that you are paying, when you feel that you are getting value for money, that money is not being misappropriated, that of course makes us as taxpayers happier to pay. So I think with those words, let me just once again reiterate, both the World Bank, but all the partners who are here, including UNCDF that I not mentioned, we are all committed to walking this journey with you and want to congratulate you once more for this really good piece of work. Asanteni sana.